Hey folks, Ray from Rainmaker.com here. I'm going to do a really straightforward, potentially boring for some people, walkthrough of the Suunto 9 interface. So I've got the Suunto 9 right here. I'm going to simply point the camera at the watch nice and close on the table so it's nice and steady, and just walk through all of the user interface, like how it works, all the buttons, what it does, the menus, all that kind of stuff. I've done this for pretty much every watch out there, any major watches anyways, and usually like between 10 and 20 minutes long. And I just finished up a run, so like it's a great time to do it because I've got some stats on there and stuff that you would have after you finished up a workout that are sort of interesting to look at. So that's as simple as it is. If you want something more exciting, there's like drone videos and action cam videos and all sorts of good stuff up in the corner there just for fun. Otherwise, let's get right to it. Oh, one last thing. Actually, if you want just like a general Suunto 9 overview, I've got a huge like video that goes through all of the new features also up there in the corner. So check that out if you're looking for something that's more general and not just the user interface. Okay, so here we are on the watch face itself. This is the default watch face that comes with this watch. There's a lot going on here, and it's kind of tough to see because I actually did too much today. So that means that like my step goal, which is this ring right there, is already over the top. My exercise goal as well is over the top. So all that stuff makes it a little more difficult to see than you would normally, but it's trying to show you things like your exercise goal for the week, your step goal, battery percentage, time of day, sunsets up there, 9:39. As you'll notice, the display is pretty reflective of what's going on around you. I try to keep this as best as possible on the camera, but I apologize if it's not quite in the right position all the time. You know, from a human eyesight standpoint, it's not too bad to see. It tends to be the camera that's much more difficult. Anyways, it is a touch screen, so you can swipe up to go through the menus, or down maybe once you activate it. There we go. So up to exercise, navigation, logbook, timer, settings. Those are the main ones. And if we go down, we'll go to some of the kind of like daily settings here. So we go down below the time display right there. And here we have heart rate. So right now it's attempting to read my heart rate and the finger on the back there. And it's actually not doing too bad of a job of it. Typically you put this on your wrist, of course. I can swipe to the right to see my heart rate over the last 12 hours. So you can see right now, this is where I exercised just a little bit ago. When I started this video, I ended up waiting a number of hours before I actually shot the rest of this video. We can see at the top my minimum heart rate for the day, which is 43 beats per minute. And you can see right now the current heart rate has popped up a little bit there. I've been walking around kind of cleaning up stuff around here. But then of course this is the exercise there for the hour or so that I did my run. If I go ahead and tap down there, you can see kind of some more heart rate stats. For example, my calorie consumption here, 244 kcal an hour. So we'll swipe back out of that there to the main heart rate screen, and we'll just go down to the menu. So I've walked 23,000 steps a day, so not too shabby of a day. Of course, that is inclusive of my run, so that's what you're seeing right there. And you can see the average, of course, over this week is 9,600 steps. I can swipe right again. You're seeing these little dots update there, the calories for each day. So in this case, it's the average is 3,040 calories for the week. And then I think I can go down there. So that's just a smartphone notification alert, by the way. So it just came in right there. That's from our drop cams, our Nest Cam system. So you can see motion. I can just go ahead and dismiss that there. Come on, go away. There we go. And those just pop up. You get a little bit less detail on the Suunto watches than you do on the Garmin watches in some cases, because you don't get the title displayed as much, but it's somewhat negligible. So in that case, I kind of knew what that was as opposed to having to figure it out. In any case, if I go down there, I can see again calories today, yesterday, and so on through that list. So go back here, swipe out of this, back out to the main screen there, and we'll continue down our trek here. This is the total weekly training to date. So in this case, I'm at 4 hours and 38 minutes. I still got tomorrow's long ride to do as well. And I've set a goal down there at the bottom, a weekly goal of 3 hours there. That's just actually the defaults, but it's what it's set there. Swipe to the right there. You can see the goal reached, the training plan if I had it applied. And then this is the number of hours per week over the course of the average. So I've been kind of like give and take on using the watch over the course of the last few weeks. I've been kind of using it here and there, but not necessarily for every single workout. So kind of focusing on the workouts that I thought were most unique and ones that I wanted to capture the most. One thing I forgot to mention midway through this is that for both the training time and the steps, you can tap on the screen to change it from training time to recovery time. So I did forget to mention that. So just something to keep in mind as well. Still the same for the rest of the options, but when you go back to here, you can change that recovery time back to training total time for the week, and the same here from calories to steps. So I just did want to mention that. I totally forgot about that. And you can notice that here as well. If I'll go tap that, it just changes back to temperature. This is the current temperature. So you can see those two little icons right there. It's simply swapping that between those two. So just wanted to do that before or mention that before I moved on. Anyways, sliding on down again, you can see my altitude, negative 78 feet. This may not actually be incorrect, by the way. I'm in Amsterdam, and parts that are in fact equal to or below sea level. So this may not be totally incorrect. You can see the barometer reading at the bottom there. There's my altitude over the last 2 hours, basically flat line because I've been staying in one place, and there's a barometer reading over the last 12 hours. So scrolling on back through here, and I think we got one more screen at the bottom there. Yep, we got sleep. So this is sleep that I received last night, a little bit higher than actual, not too much high. This was like the rare time finally that all the children decided to sleep past 7 in the morning. So they were exhausted from the heat, which is great. And so they slept more, and thus I slept more. So 8 hours, 43 minutes. I can swipe in here, and I don't like to wear this watch to bed, honestly, that much. I just find it really big and clunky for sleeping with, so that's why I'm not usually wearing a ton there. But just something to keep in mind, your average heart rate while sleeping, this is valuable information. Unfortunately, none of this information is transferred to moves count for you to track there. Some of this does actually go to Suunto's new app platform via sports tracker, but that side isn't really that great for tracking activities, so you kind of got to split or choose which one you want to sync to or sync to both, but it just gets kind of messy. So in any case, average heart rate, this is actually useful information though, because from that you can start trending and figuring out if you're getting sick and stuff like that. So back to here, do I have any more screens? Oh, that's it. So we'll go up and I'm just going to show you some of the settings, and we'll dive into an activity as sort of our last one here. So up into the very top, we've got settings. I can swipe to the right, and I can use buttons for this, by the way. So I can go down like this instead. For all actions, you can use buttons instead. So into general, for example, I've got date and time. One annoyance, actually my biggest annoyance of this watch is the fact that I can't set the date and time via GPS or via phone, versus every other watch on the market now allows me to set the date and time via GPS or phone. I have to actually set the exact location I'm in, so I have to go in here and choose where I am, and so on. It's kind of annoying. Like, I just don't understand why that's not done by this point in time. Language, tones, backlight I can change, power saving, personal about, this is like, stats on gender and so on is all in there. That's mostly for using calorie calculations and stuff. I can create alarms in here. So I can put sunrise alarms, sunset alarms, storm alarms, and so on. Connectivity is where I do pairing of sensors. So I can pair different sensors by going to pair sensors there, and I can choose heart rate sensor, power pod, bike pod, etc. One thing to be aware of with that is you can only pair one type of one sensor. So if you have multiple heart rate straps for some reason, or multiple power meters, maybe more common actually, especially because power meters is shared across bike and run, that is a bit of a challenge there. I go down to pair devices here, and I can see the mobile app is paired, and the cycling pod is paired. That's my my power meter on my bike. But if I wanted to pair a power meter on the run, it would replace that. So that is a bit of a bummer. Going on back here, outdoor, this is like reference altitude, setting altitude, auto adjust, things like that. So basically barometer is the way that really should read. And navigation is where I can go to calibrate the compass, set the declination, compass units, theme, and so on. When you calibrate the compass, it's really important you do this in an open field. If you plan to use kind of their long-range tracking, where they go ahead and they can do basically GPS off for up to 2 minutes at a time and still get the GPS track, and it warns you of that, just be really aware of that. Don't track or don't do the calibration right next to a building or whatever the case may be. Activity tracking in here, I can turn on and off daily heart rate tracking. So that's this heart rate sensor on the back, they're illuminating up. So obviously you'll save battery if that's off, pretty significant amount of battery in fact. And then steps, the target I can set, calories and notifications are all right there as well. Continuing on down, training. So the weekly training goals, the intensity zones, I can go in here and set those. And this is something that's cool that they do better than Garmin, is the ability to set, for example, run power zones in here. So that's pretty cool that you can do that, whereas you can't do that on the Garmin. So for example, running and cycling, I can go in here, pace zones and power zones is something, again, that's unique to Suunto there, and is pretty important if you're training with running power. In the case of Garmin, you have to use an app. It's just kind of clunky. It's just not really the same at all. This is a much better design for running power specifically. But as I mentioned earlier, it's still challenging because while this is better for running power zones, it sucks because you can't pair both a running power meter and a cycling power meter. And the vast majority of people that are using running powers are probably also triathletes that have their own cycling power meter. So you can see where that's a bit of a challenge there. I think that is the last menu down there. Training, sleep. This is simply where I can turn on and off sleep settings or on and off sleep tracking and do not disturb sleep mode, though your phone's probably going to control most of that, and I can turn on and off notifications here. And then finally the watch face. Yes, you can go ahead and change the watch face as you see fit. 2 different watch faces there. You can't customize these like you can't in terms of downloading your own and creating your own, stuff like that. So it's a little more limited than most other watches out in the market in that respect, but it hasn't really seemed to bother a lot of people. So into the kind of a general options, this is beyond the settings. So this is the timer. We can go in here and you can just simply start a timer, and you can swipe up there and do stopwatch, for example, and so on. So pretty straightforward stuff. Nothing too fancy here. Scrolling on down, logbook is where I can look at my past activities. So for example, this run that I did today, a little over 10 miles, 116. And I can go in here and I can see pace, I can see my cadence a bit low, my heart rate fairly consistent after the first little bit. This is where the Suunto definitely had some challenges in the very beginning there. Tracking was showing me like a 180 and stuff, which is nuts for just the first few minutes, or in this case it's probably almost first 10 minutes of heart rate, just simply wasn't accurate. And after that then it stabilized really quite nicely, but still that's really long time for that to stabilize. It should be like, I would say most optical heart rate sensors are on the first 2 to 3 minutes at worst. So for that to be that long is a long time. Scrolling on down, intensity zones, you can see those: calories, recovery time, PTE, epoch, and then ascent and descent, and so on. So I would say like this graph there of ascent and descent, I started and ended in the same place. So you can see barometer shifts there. Storm was moving in, so that may be something to do with that. Here's auto laps. So I really love the Suunto auto lap display. It's one of my favorite things from a workout standpoint, is the way they do the auto lap and the way they do the lap display here in particular. So not so much auto laps, but lap display. It's just, I love the way that's done. Makes it really nice and clean and easy to understand. So that's, again, logbook. You can see that for all your workout activities in there. We'll scroll back here, and then navigation as well. So I have POIs, routes, etc. Some of these I have to resync to my watch after the last firmware update. So that's where you control all of the navigation bits itself. And then finally, exercise. So this is if you want to start a workout, you go into here, you would choose the workout type. So you can customize all these on moves count, and then you would sync them to the watch. So you can see here is running. This is my most recent sport. And then as I go down, it goes backwards in the recency, if you will, recency, for lack of a better term there. Most recent sport beyond that was circuit training, and then open water swim that I did on Thursday it was. And then let's see, cycling. Somewhat interesting, this did not show up in the list of sports that I did this week, by the way. So I thought that was kind of notable. Then cycling beyond that, and I guess ski touring was something I must have toyed with at one point. So anyways, I'll go up here to go to running. I select that, and now you'll see it's turned on the optical heart rate sensor in the back right there. So that's cooking now, and it's going to try to find that lock, and that's indicated by this little heart rate icon right there. Once that icon is locked, or once the heart rate's locked, the icon will stay on. GPS it's already found, that's indicated by that little GPS arrow right there. So it's got a GPS lock nice and quick. And if I tap this button up here, this will change the GPS performance type. So you see this has 18 hours in this mode, and it's going to ask me to calibrate the compass, because these are going to the modes that depends on accurate compass data to be able to kind of interpolate your basic GPS tracks. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that for right now, and then go back here again. You can change it now to a mode that has 66 hours of GPS life. Again, it's going to ask me to calibrate the compass because it really wants to ensure that's correct if it's going to give me good tracks with that. I'm going to swipe back out of this again though. I'm not going to do that right now because of where I am. And if I tap this one more time here, you'll see it's back to the green. So the high performance mode, 11 hours of GPS time at the very top there. So it's showing that dynamically. And that's what's really cool about the new Suunto 9 modes, is that you can even change that mid-sport if you need to. So if you're getting into a trouble spot, it'll actually prompt you to change that. It gets lower and lower in battery life. It's going to say, hey, we're probably going to run out of battery life on this. Do you want to change it? And you can say no, because I'm only 5 minutes away from finishing, or yes, please save me. If I go down to the bottom here, Into the options, I can set targets. So I can go and set intensity targets and general targets. And then I can go down to navigation. I can choose, for example, a point of interest or breadcrumb trail or route to go ahead and follow. Keep in mind, at no point on the Suunto series do they have underlying mapping, so you can't see like streets and stuff like that on here. You're just seeing the breadcrumb trail essentially and where you're going to go. Auto pause on or off, I have it off. Battery mode that I just talked about, performance. And here you can see the different battery modes with the battery I have remaining. So 11 hours left on the high performance, 18 hours on endurance, and 66 hours on ultra. Or I can customize a bunch of settings and get a blend of that. And again, this is the remaining battery on my watch. I think I probably have about 40 or so % remaining. Optical heart rate on or off, and backlight on or off. And intervals and theme. So if I go into intervals, for example, I can create an interval, reps and recovery and duration, all that kind of stuff. Same stuff that you'd expect into that. So we're going to go all the way back up at the top here. At this point in time, it doesn't have heart rate lock, which is normal because I'm not really on my wrist. I will click on start, and it's going to start recording. So, you know, if you were running or cycling, you would see the time increasing there, or sorry, the distance increasing. You're seeing the duration increase. You're seeing a little bit of pace just by GPS with the buildings around here and stuff. But I mean, this is almost standing still. 55 minutes a mile is basically standing still. I did finally get heart rate lock on my finger, which is nice. And I can go ahead and then just swipe through this here, or I can press this button right there to change. So you can see my first lap that I'm in right now, lap average heart rate, and again, if I go into this, I can see now I'm seeing zones on the outer edge right here, and I'm going ahead and seeing my heart rate in those zones. Again, sitting here, you're not really going to see too much. If I go and show you what this looks like while I'm running, you can kind of see these same sort of data fields as I go through them here. For example, there's also a heart rate graph data field, so I can see my heart rate graph over time. Again, while I'm running here, you can see a bit more of this data. It's a bit hard with the running because, you know, there's the display and stuff is a bit tricky in the camera, but you can kind of get the picture of what's going on there. You can see with the track as well to see where I've gone from a tracking standpoint. And then back into kind of that main page there showing my time and distance and so on. All pretty much pretty customizable, so the stuff I can customize on moves count itself, and that's basically it. So when I'm done with this activity, I just would click on the stop button up here in the corner, and then I would click end, and then it's going to give me like an option to say how good was the activity, and I just tapped something apparently. So I've chosen one of those options and I've saved it, and it'll give me a summary, which sitting here at this table won't be terribly exciting, but that's all right. Just so I showed you this before, that same summary that showed in the logbook is exactly what you get here, exact same stuff. And now you're back to the watch face. So that is a complete tour of things from the user interface standpoint. Again, on the buttons on the side here, you have 3 buttons right there. These a little bit deeper, a little bit thicker, if you will, than the Suunto Ultra series. And on the back, there's the optical sensor from Vow and Cell. The watch straps are removable. One of the big kind of selling points of this from a watch strap standpoint is they're now kind of standard issue watch straps that you can swap to whatever you want, which is pretty cool. There is your altimeter there, your barometric altimeter on the side, and that is it. Again, you know, this is really very similar to a Spartan Ultra watch. There's not a lot of differences besides those battery life modes and the fact that they changed the GPS chipset from Surf to Sony, but otherwise most of the features and most of the software is pretty much exactly what you had on the Suunto Spartan Ultra series. Okay, there you go. Thanks for watching. If you found it interesting, go ahead and whack that like button up the corner there, actually down there. I really appreciate it. Also, the subscribe button. There's plenty more sports technology goodness to come this summer still, so you don't want to miss any of that as soon as it drops. Have a good one.